I'm Megan Buckite. I am a Senior Digital Account Manager at Lotman Mascanil & Company. We are a direct response fundraising firm located here in DC. And then at Lotman, I have the privilege to work with the Bread for the World team, including Susanna.
Yeah, I'm Susanna Bean-Jones. I'm the Senior Digital Strategy Manager at Bread for the World. If you're not familiar with Bread for the World, we are a Christian advocacy organization that's dedicated to ending hunger.
So just a quick poll to kick things off. How many people in this room, can we see a show of hands, if you have a texting program at your organization? Okay, so a good amount of people. Great. And so many of us already know that texting is a great tool for both fundraising and for engagement and advocacy. And that is useful for many reasons, but number one is really that email is getting harder and harder every year, as it seems like we have to send more and more messages to raise the same amount. But meanwhile, SMS is growing every year. So we see much higher click-through rates for SMS than we do for email. Lists are growing every year. As far as number of subscribers and the number of text messages that organizations send. So that is a promising sign.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk you through some tips and tricks as you get started with engaging networks in Twilio. And the first point is actually has nothing to do with your system, and that is to make a plan. So whether you're starting SMS for the first time or you're thinking about switching into the engaging network software, you want to make sure that you've convened the stakeholders in your organization. You figure out who's going to own this, who controls what content goes out. What content are you putting out? Who's writing that? Who's going to design your creative? Make sure that you're talking through all of those details and that you get everyone on board and excited about the potential of SMS for your organization. And then next, for Twilio specifically, first, get in touch with your Engaging Networks account success manager. They're going to help you walk you through some of those first pieces and steps that you need to do. Obviously, read the great documentation that Engaging Networks has on SMS. One of your first decision points is going to be about a long code, which is like a regular phone number, or a short code, which is 4 to 6 digits. And really for this, it depends on your organization and your needs. There's some pros and cons. So first is cost. For a short code, it's much more expensive than a long code. You're going to have an annual cost that is on top of your network fees for sending out those messages. Also, you want to think about reputation. I know we're getting a lot of spam texts these days, and a lot of those are coming from long code. So think about whether that fits for your organization or not. And then sending speed. So long codes take a good amount longer to send. So if you're coming into the system with a substantial list, you need to think about, is this text going to take several hours to send, and does that really serve my program? We chose to go with a long code, really on cost, but I've sort of warned our team that we're going to need to move at some point due to the size of our list to a short code. And so we need to prepare for that cost and expect that, that bump up to happen. And then you need to get your number registered. So unlike email, there's a lot of telecommunications laws that govern SMS. And so you need to make sure to work with Twilio to go through that registration process, but plan for some extra time because they're going to look at your opt-ins, how you're collecting numbers, your privacy policy, and you might need to make some changes. And that can take a little bit of time.
So you also want to get started collecting phone numbers. So you want to make this really easy for your supporters to sign up for SMS. So you want to put this pretty much everywhere you can. So that includes your online forms for donations and for advocacy asks, but also for things like your direct mail forms. People will sign up for your SMS on your direct mail if you give them the option there. Once you get all those phone numbers, you're going to need to clean them up. And for better or for worse, there are a bunch of different ways that people format phone numbers, but we need them all to be consistent so that they work properly. So you can do that a couple of different ways with a validator or with JavaScript. And then as Susanna was alluding to, when it comes to SMS, there's a lot of legal implications as well. So you also want to make sure you have a clear disclaimer for people as they're signing up for your SMS list, stating what they're agreeing to, and that is almost definitely also worth running by your legal department if you have one, just to make sure everyone is on the same page about what's happening. So another thing you'll want to think about as you get started is segmentation. And the great thing about running your SMS program through Engaging Networks in Twilio is you have access to so much data because you're already integrated into your ECRM. So there's a lot of ways you can leverage all that data. And you just need to start brainstorming and thinking about what makes sense for your organization, and having a plan as you start to create content. And then more kind of important legal matters is you also need to make it very easy for people to opt out of SMS. So BRED includes just like a simple stop to quit message at the end of every SMS, similar to an unsubscribe button on an email. And that makes it really easy and just reminds people exactly what they need to do if they want to opt out. But you want to make sure that's clear across your organization, what's happening there, so that someone opting out of SMS doesn't accidentally get them opted out of other channels like email or something like that. So just being really clear with your team and everyone who deals with data that exactly what happens when someone opts out. And so here you can see an example text from Brett that has that disclaimer right at the end. And I believe Twilio makes this really easy, so it's just automatically embedded. Something like you can automatically embed something like this in each message.
Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through what it was like to start at Bread for the World. And we launched our program in 2024, and we wanted to do a variety of things. We were thinking about promoting our advocacy, engagement, and fundraising. Really, Bread has three main pathways of engagement, which are pray, act, and give. So we wanted this new channel to reflect those engagement pathways. So to get started, we pitched a 6-month testing period, and that was because we were working to get members of our organization on board and excited about the potential. I knew the power of SMS, seeing all the numbers from other organizations and benchmarks. So I just knew I need some time to prove those numbers at Bread for the World in particular. So we had our digital strategy team be the main owners of that for the 6 months. That allowed us to test things like sending out images or not, the timing of text, how many we'd send, the content that went into them. And then we were brainstorming use cases for texting. So what kind of content could we come up with? And we use these 4 buckets to brainstorm. So the first bucket is intimate, so interact with supporters in meaningful ways. So this is something that's personal about them. If you have birthday data, that could be something, but it also could be milestones within your organization, like you've taken X number of action alerts this year with us. Then you have the bucket of immediate, so this would be texts that bring a sense of urgency. So think action alerts, something that's tied to a hot topic in the news. Also definitely fundraising texts, especially with deadlines, fall under that bucket as well. You've got informative. So this is where you're educating your supporters about your issue. What do they need to know to be effective with your organization? How can you educate them through a text? And then finally, the individual bucket. So these are personalized and customized engagements that grow loyalty. So you want to think about moving someone along the user journey. So what's, if they've taken an action alert, what's the next step they need to take? Maybe that's call an elected official. Maybe then that's showing up to an organizing meeting. You can use the power of that data that Engaging Networks has and just go to the people who've taken only 1 action alert this year. Send them a text, invite them to call their elected official. You're moving someone along that pathway. All right, so how did it go for us? We started slow and steady, maybe a bit too slow. So we started collecting in December of 2023. We collected those opt-ins, but the process to be ready to start just took longer than we expected. And so we didn't send our first text until July. And I was really concerned about a high opt-out rate. We did see a pretty high opt-out rate. But then we had a list growth that more than doubled in the next year. And the primary driver of those signups were action alert forms, because we were already requiring phone number to take an action alert, because sometimes members of Congress require that to receive a letter. And so we just added that opt-in option there. And so that really became one of our best drivers of signups.
So we're just going to quickly go through some examples of how Bread is using SMS. So we're going to start out with advocacy. So you can see here, this really gets to that sense of urgency that Susanna was talking about. A lot of these texts have to do with things that are happening at the current moment. They're things that are in the news a lot. There's been a lot, unfortunately, in the news this year in particular about hunger. So and policies that impact it. So these are a variety of messages that have built on that, and where Bread has encouraged their members to reach out to their member of Congress. And of course, engaging networks makes it really easy for people to do so and linking right to those forms. And then I also make it really easy to create a daisy chain to make a really compelling post-action fundraising ask. So right after someone goes through that form, they get another ask asking them to donate to Bread's work to further support it, which we see really good response rates from this sort of thing. And on the note of fundraising, we also have been having good luck using SMS for our fundraising, particularly for our best performing campaigns, which they usually are, once again, campaigns that either leverage current events and things that are going on in the news, or they're focused on things like matches and premiums, particularly if you can highlight those things in the MMS itself with an image. We've had really great success with doing that, including on big days like Giving Tuesday and at the end of the year.
So in addition to fundraising and advocacy, also a core part of our work is encouraging and providing our resources with our members resources to pray. So whether that's creating a moment of reflection like before the election last year, or sending out an Advent devotional, that's something we also use text for. We have a really strong organizing program. So we use merge tags to put the supporters' state in the text itself and then invite them to their local organizing meeting. We also do a bit of get out the vote work. So last year on National Voter Registration Day, we sent out our pledge to vote to end hunger. And it's a great way to tie a particular day into your organization's work. And then this I'm very excited about. I did it just about 2 months ago. So you can incorporate in Engaging Networks SMS with marketing automations. So we have 2 automations around our monthly donors, and one of them occurs when there's an error. The next occurs if that monthly donation suspends. So we've added in that it sends an SMS and an email now. So I'm very excited. I think that hearing in a couple different ways, ooh, there's something wrong with your monthly donation, please come back, will help to bring those members back and prevent lapses. It's a little too early for me to have numbers on this, so maybe in a future session. So I'll just be brief on this. I've talked about some of the challenges like internal buy-in, that number registration process. Also that ongoing phone number cleanup. We worked with Firefly actually to create JavaScript code. It turns out that, well, we put the validator on there. We got a lot of emails from people confused about formatting their phone number, doing it correctly, and that was preventing them from taking action. So we just had a bit of code that cleans that up, puts the country code, takes out punctuation, and all of that. The other piece that we're working on is having content that's distinct from email. We wanted our texting program to feel a bit behind the scenes, like, oh, we're headed to the hill right now. This is what's happening. Here's what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. But that is sort of a whole new stream of content that we have to develop and help our organizers and government relations staff know what kind of content we need and how to get that to us. So here are the results. So click-through rate, those who clicked on the text we sent them was 17% in 2024 and is now 25% this year. You're going to see every number of these metrics increased in 2025. I would love to say that's because of my work on SMS. It's really because everyone is more engaged right now. People want something to do. So we've seen those click-through rates rise on email as well as SMS. However, SMS far outperforms email. If you know anything about email stats, 25% click-through rate is unheard of for mass emailing. Response rate, so those who received the text and completed the action went from 3% to 6% this year. And then finally, page completion rate. We were at 11%. We're sitting at about 25% now. So like I said, we want to continue to grow the list. We see this as a valuable new channel and one that we want to invest in as an organization. So we want to invite people in our welcome series, our email welcome series, to sign up for SMS. Also, I haven't talked about this yet, but one of the features I love with Engaging Networks is the keyword sign up. So you can text a particular word to the number to sign up. You also can program that bounce back text to have a particular message. It could be a take action message at a live event, which we did at one in January when we were launching our policy platform. And we had 50 signups as a result of that live event. We'll look into do some social media promotion, paid advertising, and like I said, continue to generate that content.
Yeah, so if you're interested in seeing how Bread actually uses this day to day, you can text the number right here. You can text Bread and you can sign up. Today is actually an important fundraising day for Bread. It's World Food Day, so you might even get something today from them. So thank you all so much. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
All right. Thank you. We do have a couple questions. What system did you set up to monitor SMS replies and donor service type responses?
Sure. So right now we can export from Twilio and see those responses, but we don't have a way to inbox them. I'm very excited that it is a coming feature.
Yes.
So right now we just don't have a way to do that.
Yeah. So as you all know from the roadmap presentation yesterday, this is coming to Engaging Networks. So yay, exciting. Okay, someone would like to know, what is the ideal message length? Have you tested that?
I think that's something to test because I think that's very organization dependent and like also dependent on the situation and what's happening. Like if it's a very like if it's like a reaction to something that is going on in a current event in the news or something like that, I think that's a situation where a short message is probably more appropriate. But again, I've seen really long texts work well for other groups. It really just depends. I think you kind of have to play around with it.
Great. Around how many numbers did you have when you started your program?
So we didn't start with any numbers before we started collecting them. So we were starting from scratch because we didn't have any opt-ins for SMS and we needed that track record. But I think our list by July was sitting somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000.
4,000 to
From
5,000.
December.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was after about 6 months.
Yeah.
Of collecting.
And that was when Bread started sending messages.
Correct.
And how frequently are you messaging?
Yeah, so I'm doing about one a week, like 3 to 4 a month, something like that. But then there will be important days where we might send 2 in a day, or we might send one right after another. So it depends. But I always like to have a really good reason if I'm going to send more than 2 in a week.
Okay. All right. Is your SMS program net positive in revenue, and how do you minimize cost for the program?
Yeah, it is not yet net revenue. We're not making money off of it yet. I think as our list grows, that will we'll get much closer to that. A lot has to do with the length of the text, because once you go over, it may have come in a block, but actually the carriers treat that as maybe 2 or maybe 3. If you have a message or an image, that might be 4, and that just costs a lot more.
Right. Have you guys tried offering any text incentives like digital gifts, like wallpaper, anything like that?
Yeah, we've just started to experiment with that, particularly from the mailed pieces, right?
Yeah, so we've been kind of repurposing some resources that we've already been creating for the direct mail program at Bread and turning those into digital resources and brainstorming about a lot more different things that we create in the future. So that's something we're still at the early stages of exploring.
Great. All right, I think we have time for one more. I think So someone would like to know how you're integrating SMS with your emails. And I think you spoke about this a little bit and how you wanted to diversify from email. But are you doing any sending of them together, or do you have different strategies for each?
Yeah. So usually action alerts we're always doing by email and text. We've seen good response rates with action alerts on SMS. In fact, I also can always see that it bumps up the response numbers by a set amount, like usually by about 300 to 500 every time we do it. And it's not decreasing. So people aren't getting it on text instead of email and acting in one place versus the other. It's reaching people who otherwise would not have acted on email and are acting because it's coming to their phone. So that's one place where we just sort of send it on the same day. We have done occasionally experimenting with it being kind of like a kicker to email. So we're still
Like
experimenting.
you got this email and we didn't hear from you. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Just another touch point, maybe a day later. But I don't have hard numbers on that yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're
Great.
also, we're not, sending an SMS message for every fundraising email by any means, but like I said, focusing on like the most important days to sprinkle in SMS messages to really reinforce what's going on in email there too.
Great. And just quickly, do you find that your SMS program is bringing in younger donors? Is it diversifying your file at all? Or maybe you haven't really looked into it yet?
I don't have data on that, so I don't know. I do know we have an event coming up where we're working with college students. So I, in particular, set up a keyword for those events, and I'm hoping that might feel like a more applicable channel.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you both. This was really interesting. Let's give them a round of applause.